Hello and welcome to the Accountable Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back, or if this is the first time, I'm so glad you're here. And we have a special guest today, and I'm so excited. She has been a coach of mine, a mentor of mine, a friend of mine, all the things, and I'm so excited to talk to you today, Holly. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I feel like this has been a long time coming. I love the new podcast and the goals and all of your guests. Like it's so good.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting when I think back to, you were on the first podcast, and then last year, so we're recording this in September of 2025, and last October is when I was like, I need to name this new podcast, and I was at your
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, we came up with the name and the strategy and it like came to life. So I'm so excited that it's here.
I know. And it's been such a good year and been fun to experiment with. And it's been just so neat to see. Starting the first podcast felt one way, starting the second podcast felt another way, but it was just so fun. So thank you. And thank you to all the ladies. Shout out to all the ladies who were at your house last October.
Thank you.
It was so fun. You create a great space for us all. So, we're going to talk about lots of different things today, but to give some context to the person listening, maybe they have not been to your house and they don't know you as well. Can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you do, and also include anything about your personality in terms of like Enneagram or Myers-Briggs, any of those good things?
You're probably like, who is this person that has like clients to their house? Like, what do you do? Well, the formal answer is I'm a business strategist and I really dial into helping you create what I call a life priorities first business where you're not relying on social media. And that really came from my own experience of building my business. I started the Crush the Rush podcast and my strategic coaching business in January of 2020, and I was working full time and I was working for the C suite, and I have 22 years of corporate strategy background, and I just simply could not post 17 times a day and had very limited time. I have twin daughters. They were 5 at the time, they're 11 now. And I just didn't have time to do the things that we were being taught to do when you wanted to create a business. And so I was like, I'm a decently smart person. I think I have a lot of experience with helping large Fortune 500 businesses. Like, surely I can figure out a way. So I really leaned into how can I help women build successful businesses in a way that really supports what they want to do. And I share a lot that, the goal is obviously, I think, to make money, but a lot of times money is not the driver. It's the schedule, or it's the vacation, or it's that like other tangible thing. And so that's really the strategic systems and processes that I teach of like, how do we, I hate the word balance, but how do we prioritize different things at different times so that we're seeing and experiencing the success that we want. So I am an Enneagram 3. I am in human design. I'm a 2-4, which is really interesting because most of our programs are very community focused. We have an amazing community. My podcast is very community focused, but the 2-4 is community and a hermit. So I
My
feel like
gosh.
when I learned that, I was like, this is so interesting to me. So Amanda was mentioning in our we call it the collective co-op, in our co-op program, which is like a mastermind. We have retreats twice a year and we host the retreats at our house. Like, you come to Columbus, Ohio, and it's this very like intimate, fun experience. But after that, I go into hermit mode because I'm like, okay, I just need a break for a minute. And so I feel like knowing that about your personality and what you offer as a business owner is really important, because I'm like, well, of course, community makes sense. Like, that's what I love to do. But then it's like, of course, I need, like, after I do 4 or 5 podcast interviews, I will like go out on our patio and watch Gilmore Girls. And my husband's like, yep, she just needs a minute. Like, just give her a minute. I just need that like quiet to recharge.
I love that you know that about yourself and how we learn that over time too.
Yeah.
Especially, I feel like entrepreneurship is like a crash course in personal development, real quick. And you get to learn these things. And the more that you lean into it, the more helpful it is. And that's why I started asking everyone on this podcast, like,
Yeah, I
what
love
is your
it.
type? Because I think it gives the context. You may share something in this episode, which I'm sure that you're going to share tons of things, right? But you may share something that someone listening is like, that would not work for me. And that's okay. And it's like, oh, but how could something work for you with that same outcome, but maybe in a different way? And I just think it's really fun to give that context. So thank you. Enneagram
Yeah. Have
3.
you run the human design on your business?
You told me to do that, and I don't think I
So
did.
I did a whole podcast on it and it's fascinating. I used ChatGPT to do it and I ran like what's the human design of our podcast? And it told me like
Oh,
I used the date that we launched the podcast and our podcast is a projector, which is the complete opposite of like a manifesting generator,
right.
but it also is a hermit. And so it told me like what episodes would be really great to do and like why the podcast needs time to recharge. I mean, if you're like, "Oh, who is Holly? What? Come on. It's really cool. Like it's so fun if you're into that stuff."
Okay, I'm definitely going to do that after we get off this interview
Yeah.
because that seems so cool. So, did you do a separate one for like the business or you did it like the
I
podcast was the
just did
start of
it
your
for the
business?
podcast mainly because the podcast is our like hub of
True.
our business. So whatever I'm talking about on the podcast usually leads to like our content and what we're offering and
True.
it's our community and it's like basically the central nervous system.
Mm,
But you could do it on a program. I mean, and then I have this like thread started now where I can like,
right.
it's like my business therapist. And I'm like, what do you think? Should we do this month? Or how does that feel? And it's like, well, the podcast is feeling this and you're feeling this. It's like, it's so crazy, but very
Oh my
fun.
gosh, I cannot wait to do this.
Yeah.
That sounds so fun. And what a cool way to like tap into like I'm just curious. It's so interesting to think about the date something was conceived and
Mhm.
like put into the world as like the birth date of a
Yeah.
business and we think about like and I've never thought about thinking about the personality of like, oh, I wonder I chose this date for a reason.
Right. Yeah. It's really
So
fun.
interesting.
You have
I
to tell
love
me what
that.
it says.
Well, I definitely will. That'll be super fun. And I'm going to go listen to that podcast episode. I'll make sure to link it in the show notes too.
Yeah.
Of course, your podcast, but that specific episode, I'll make sure to grab that one. So, you said you were working full time when you started your business. And one of the things that I think is really interesting, and you and I have talked separately about this because we both were in the corporate world and then entered entrepreneurship world. And a lot of people do that, whether it's quote unquote a corporate job or some type of nonprofit or whatever the case is and then they start their own business and you used the term that I thought was so interesting when we were talking about this of like unraveling from one job to the next career move. And I thought that's such an interesting thing and I'd love to talk about how you noticed the things you needed to unravel from.
Yeah. So this is like a whole story, but to me, I always, I mean, I just refer to myself as old because I'm like, I didn't start my business until, how old am I? I was 41. And we're 5 years in. So, I mean, I was a late starter. This was not like an early, like, let's try something. And so it's very ingrained in me of, you go to high school and then you go to college and then you get a job and then you get married and then you have kids. And then, I feel like my generation was okay, women can have a career and have a family. And so that's kind of like what I was embracing, but there was no like work life balance. I mean, the lean in movement was just kind of starting. And so I feel like I was just taught that like you have to do everything and you just figure it out. And so
Mm,
that's like just what I knew. I didn't know any different. I didn't really I mean, we have so many examples now of women doing so many amazing things and I like that didn't really exist 5 or 6 years
right.
ago even. And so for me, starting the business was just like, oh, I really need something that's going to be a little bit more rewarding for me than what I was currently doing. I never thought that I would leave my job. I never thought that it would replace my salary like 20 years in. I never was brought up with entrepreneurship, but as I started getting into it more, I like it's almost like you have to start before you know what the end is, kind of.
Mhm.
And so I was like, well, what if I could work 3 days a week and I could actually have time to like get my kids off the bus? Or what if I had Fridays off and I could actually go to the gym at like 7 in the morning instead of 4:30 in the morning, right? And so I feel like I had to create the space first, even if it was just like a little bit of space to show myself like what was possible and how much better it might be again because there weren't really examples and as I like experience just like a little bit of freedom or a schedule change, I just wanted more. I was like, well, this is so much better. Like, I could go to the grocery store on a Tuesday instead of a Saturday with everyone else. And it's like a game changer. And so I think once that like clicked in me, I was like, okay, we have to unravel some really bad habits. And not bad habits because they were necessarily bad, but bad habits because I just didn't think anything would ever be different. And so I had to prove myself that, well, you can have a different schedule. Like this morning, we're in the middle of a like mini launch right now. I hosted a workshop before this, and I went for like a 2-hour walk in a neighborhood like on the other side of town and went to a coffee shop. And I was like, who is this? Like, what is this person? Because even that has changed like as we've grown. And so I think my advice is like, just give yourself a little bit of white space to see what's possible and like what you really like doing. And you're going to crave more of it. And that's really going to curate like, what your new habits might be.
That's so, I love that thank you for sharing the story. And I love that you shared, you have to start basically with curiosity and
Hmm.
giving yourself that white space of what if, because you said that several times. What if
Hmm.
this? What if that? And this idea of like just giving yourself the permission to dream. And I think that is often very, very hard to do,
Yeah.
especially, I'm just going to call us Enneagram threes out
It is so
on,
hard. I want a plan. I
yes,
need a
and we want to
checklist.
do. Like,
Yeah.
white space is actually very hard for a lot of us. And so that in and of itself is a habit change. And so once you notice something, so you give yourself the curiosity, you notice like, oh, I kind of like this idea. How then did you take that in specifically and say, okay, how am I going to, I don't know if you were using the term unraveling, right,
Yeah, I
in your mind
wasn't.
at that time, but like, how did you go from, and maybe there's specific examples of going on a walk is a great one
Hmm.
because I don't know about you, but in my corporate days, homegirl did
Yeah,
not
not
take a
happening.
walk in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Like, and that is something I do all the time now, but that did not happen easily. So how have
Yeah.
you allowed
Well,
yourself?
I think for me, everyone has those like points in their life where they're like, I think something needs to change, but I don't know what it
Mm,
is. And like for me, it was having twins because it's a lot. And I also have a stepdaughter. And so we joke that like having a teenager and twin newborns at the same time is like
that's a lot.
insanity. And nothing that like, I mean, it was great, but I don't want to repeat that phase. But I was just like, I have to change things in order to survive in this scenario. And so the question that I like to ask is like, are you doing things because you've always done them, or are you doing them because you want to do them? And so I was like, well, what if I just asked my boss if, and again, this is, 5 years ago, so it was different, but like, what if I just asked my boss if I could work from home on Fridays? I've always gone into the office. I'm always there at 7:30. Like, what if I just asked, like, hey, could just one day a week I just work from home? Like, I will be so much more efficient. And I know this is like seems like a very old school example, but it was so different than it is now. And so I think for me, it was just like asking myself that question and then thinking of like little things that I could do. Like, what if I went to yoga at 7 o'clock in the morning on Friday instead of 5:30? And in my brain, I was like, well, I'm not going to get to work till 9 o'clock. And then I'm going to feel like I'm not doing the right thing. But guess what? Nobody cared. Nobody knew. Like, didn't matter. And I had more sleep. I felt relaxed. I got more done. And so it was just kind of like I just started pushing the boundaries of little things, little tiny things. And I feel like those little tiny things have added up over time. Another like more recent example is when I left my corporate job, I was like, I refuse to leave and sit in front of a computer all day. So my Enneagram 3 self is going to create some rules that we're going to follow. And one of those rules is there's no meetings on Fridays and we're going to travel once a quarter as a family. I totally made this up like on a whim. I was just like, we need rules. And so since then, it's been almost, yeah, 3 years. We've traveled to 11 different countries. I had no idea that that was going to turn into that, but it was just like, okay, I want to do things differently. What if we just put on the calendar that we're going to take a trip? I call it a trip because I think vacation with kids is different. It's not a vacation.
Truth.
We're going to take a trip, and it's not going to be to grandma's, right? Like, it doesn't have to be something crazy and fancy, but it just like, I just started pushing things just a little bit, and it's created some pretty cool results, I think.
It really has. It's fun to watch and witness that. You have another podcast episode I'll make sure to link to when you talked about going to Hawaii and how you
Yeah.
did that in a really cool way, utilizing points and all these other things. So thank you for breaking that down. I'll make sure
Yeah.
to link that one too.
Yeah, I just started challenging myself of like, okay, what if I just did this differently? And it doesn't mean you can't go back. Like if it doesn't work out, you can go back to the way that you were doing it. And so I started to notice like that's where the word unraveling came from is I had to just unravel myself from this like corporate mindset of I can eat lunch and not work. That's okay. Like I ordered a salad today and I sat outside and I ate lunch and I didn't do anything. And that is normal. That's completely normal. Or I can take a couple days off during the week or I can not work over the weekend. And so it's like all these rules that I had because I've been doing it for so long, I had to break them and like create some new ones.
I really love that. And I think, first of all, knowing about yourself and knowing rules and structure really help you. That's that Enneagram 3. That's that idea of like, you know yourself. And someone else listening, that may be the polar opposite of what they need, but it's like knowing what you need and that structure and creating those rules. But it's equally probably why you latched on. And I'm speaking for myself
Yeah.
as well. It's like I latched on. I remember very vividly when I started my business and I didn't have any clients. I had no work I was doing. There wasn't anything going on. And I sat in front of the computer from 8 until 5.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I did that other than like it was just ingrained in me and I had to give myself permission and it was very hard.
Yeah. I think also knowing your personality helps you figure out why you're doing things. For me, I like to work. It's fun. Like I love sitting down to write like a launch sequence or figure out a funnel or whatever the things are. And so if you're experiencing other things in life that are not business, which we all do, a lot of times work is like a cover up for it.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like I had worked really long hours in corporate for so long that I just was using that as like, well, I have to work. Like I can't do that. I just have to work. And so once I like started stripping away the layers, then it was like we need therapy. Oh, we need like we got a lot
Yes.
to unravel here. But I was using work as like a it's like sugar. Like I was using it as like a drug. Like, oh, it makes me feel good. I feel accomplished. I know what I'm doing. Like people are praising me. I'm going to keep doing it. And then once that stripped away, I was like, oh, wait, well, who am I without that? Like what does that look like?
It's so true. That feeling of sitting with yourself, it's why I think so many people are very uncomfortable with meditation.
Yeah, I still am with that.
And it's hard. It took me a
Yeah.
very long time. And even some days it's not great. I really went down the meditation train because I love yoga. I've practiced yoga since college. I love it so much. And shout out to all the yoga teachers out there. Love them. And so that was part of like every day for me. And then I injured my knee pretty significantly, had to have surgery, all this stuff, could not do all the things I was going to do. And for some reason, I was like, I'll just replace it with meditation.
Hmm.
What made me think that in that moment, I have no idea. I did not know how hard meditation was, is what I think I thought it was just going to be like a little rest.
Yeah, it's not it's not easy.
It was not. And it was a whole new world for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, why is it so uncomfortable to sit here? And
Hmm.
it's what you're saying. It's sitting with the things that I had been running from,
Hmm.
overworking all of those things. And so this unraveling, I think it's so interesting. And what I'm hearing here, and for the person listening who's like, ooh, uh-oh, like they're feeling the feels right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do I do? Part of me is thinking, almost like, the exercises with money of like, what's our money story? There's
Hmm.
several people that teach that method of like understanding what you've been taught about money. And someone that I believe we're both connected to, Megan Hale,
Hmm.
she and I were recently talking and we were talking about like the idea of stories, money stories, and she was like, Amanda, what I want you to do is write down all the stories. And she teaches this all the time, but
Hmm.
we just happen to be talking about it. And it was like, write down all the things that your parents, your grandparents, like what you know about money, write it down. And then I want you to write down what you actually believe.
Hmm.
And so I think we can take that same idea with rules around work. or
Mhm.
pursuing goals and
Mhm.
saying, what if I heard, and then what do I actually want to move forward with?
Yeah, I love that. I think the other example I'll give is like, so we've traveled to Europe quite a few times, and when people introduce themselves overseas, they don't introduce themselves in terms of what do you do. It's more of like who you are as a person and your family. And every time we go there, it's like so interesting to me because I'm like, nobody cares what you do.
Right.
And in the United States, it's so different. It's like, well, I understand. I've been in corporate for 22 years. Like, I feel like I have
Mm,
to prove myself.
right.
And it's like, well, does it really matter? I mean, it's in some cases it does, in some cases it doesn't. And so I think for me, it was like unraveling, like, well, who am I as a person? Also, I'm in my 40s, like, what do I want, like, the rest of my life to
Hmm.
look like if it's not defined by this, like, big fancy career?
Yeah. I really
Or maybe
like
it is a
that.
new fancy career, I don't know.
Yeah. And it can change
Yeah.
with, the season of life. And because right now you've got teenage twins,
Yeah,
they're growing up. Oh
I
my
know.
gosh.
We've
Every time
had
I
a
see
week
pictures,
over
I'm like,
here.
oh my gosh, they're so tall.
They are very tall. Yeah, I feel like middle school has been
It's
so
fun.
interesting in so many ways. That's another unraveling. I feel like I'm reliving my, like, middle school and high school years, and I'm like, "I don't want this phase again. Once was enough."
Right. I totally agree with the two-step kiddos I had. It was interesting to watch that and witness it. And like when I would pick them up after school and they'd be upset about something
Yeah.
and it was like friend drama. And I was like, oh, I did
Yeah,
not
it's a
miss
lot. It's a
that.
whole thing.
Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah. And so different seasons of life, warrant different seasons of work and like you said,
Mhm.
and just different. But I really like that idea. Thank you for bringing up the how people introduce themselves.
Mhm.
Because I also remember when I was laid off before, in between corporate and starting my own business, I remember going to a networking event, the first one I ever went to after I was laid off, in between. And I was so excited to go to this women's breakfast because I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Free breakfast. Women love it. I parked the car. I'm about to get out and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to say when someone says, what do you do?
Yeah.
And I had this feeling of just such discomfort. And ever since that day, I've never actually asked someone the question, what do you do ever again? Because I thought, I don't ever want to put anyone else in that position
Yeah.
because that was so awful. But it's so interesting how we, specifically in the US, identify as our career path so
Mhm.
much. So have you introduced yourself any differently?
Well, I joke that, like, most people in my family think I sell planners for a living, and, like, my neighbors really have no idea what my husband and I do because he works with me. So, usually I just say I help, business owners, local business
Hmm.
owners grow and, like, scale a marketing plan. I will, like, scale it down so much if somebody it's almost like I'm, like, devaluing myself, which as we talk about it, I'm like, I should really do a better job of like, "Hey, I have a top 1% podcast," right? Like,
Hmm.
maybe that's my next phase. But I actually sort of just, like, hide from it a little bit. Like, I'm like, "Well, I'll leave it a mystery for you."
Well, I feel like, I mean, I would say let's take a chapter, and I'm saying let's because I want to do the exact same thing. Let's
Yeah.
take a chapter from the Europeans. Let's stop
Yeah.
doing it. Let's
Yeah.
not do that. Let's introduce ourselves as I'm a creative lover of flowers because you have
Right?
inspired me to love flowers as much as you do.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
maybe
usually my
introducing
answer is
yourself.
super simple. Like, I own my own business and I'm in marketing or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like, it's very basic. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's such an interesting, like, how we define people in
Mm-hmm.
different, cultures, I guess, is
Yeah.
so interesting.
Those labels. And we label ourselves, other people
Mhm.
label us. It's tough for sure. So, in thinking about making changes, as the person's listening and they're like, yeah, maybe I have been holding on to this one thing or several things that I want to unravel from. Because if they've thought of it in their mind already, like you already know. And what would you suggest to the person who wants to make a change, but maybe isn't even sure of what the change is? They're in that in between stage of just noticing that something is off and wanting to move forward.
Yeah, one of the things that we in our community, we have a quarterly planning call every month where we like plan what's happening in your life and your business. And one of the questions that I ask is if you don't know where to start, where are you feeling stressed? Because that's typically the place that needs the most focus, but you probably don't want to focus on it. So like if you list like if you're immediately like I mean, mine is like I'm exhausted every day. My girl's bus comes at like 6:55. I'm getting up like an hour and a half earlier than I did all summer, and I'm like by 4 o'clock, I am dead. And I was like, I have to like do something different. That's where I'm feeling stressed. And so to me, that like identifies what's the one thing to focus on. And I know you and I are both big fans of like, let's focus on one thing, get some results on
Please.
there, and then move to the next. And so I just always ask myself, like, where am I feeling the most stressed? For me in this example, like I can't change what time I get up and I'm trying so hard to go to bed early, but there are just things that you have to do. So I'm like, okay, what else can I do to like keep my energy up? I can change what I'm eating. I can shorten my workouts. I can go for more walks. Like these are all things that I could do. And so I try really hard to ask that question and then okay, well how do I make this look different in the most simplest way? So even going back to like a corporate schedule of like, I don't want to work in the office 5 days a week. Okay, well, how do I make this look different in the simplest way? Actually, the thing that I did is I moved all my meetings away from Mondays and I didn't tell anyone my strategy. I was just like, you know what? How great would it feel as if I still have to go into the office, but I don't have any meetings. I was like so happy on Mondays and everyone's like, "What? Like what's happening, Holly?" And it's just I strategically was like, "Hey, would you mind meeting on Tuesday or Wednesday instead?" And like before I knew it, now I eventually had all of Mondays with no meetings. Then I had all of Fridays with no meetings. And then I was like, "Hey, I don't really have any meetings on Friday. Would it be okay if I worked from home occasionally?" And so I was like constantly just like pushing it a little bit.
I love that. Okay, so the two questions. Where am I feeling the most stressed?
Mhm.
How can I do something different in the most simple way? It's like boiling it down. I love
I
those
mean, it
two
works in
questions.
business too. It's like
Yeah.
where was I feeling the most stress this summer? It was like emails and sales because email is huge for us. It's like our whole business revolves around it. And I was like, well, what if I just hired somebody to do it for me for the summer? That's the simplest answer. And so I
Hmm.
did. And I was like, wow, this is like my time looks so different. Like I hired somebody, I gave them my inbox, which the corporate Holly would be like, no way,
Right.
never. I would never do that. But it made the biggest difference in the shortest amount of time.
Great. And kudos to you for asking these questions and taking action on it. Because it's one thing to think it, it is another thing to hand your inbox over, or it is another thing to
I mean,
hire
I was
someone to
nervous.
write
I'm not
emails.
gonna lie. I was like, wait, you're gonna do it? Like,
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, that's what you hired me for, Holly. I'm like, I know, but I can help.
So that's so funny. And
Yeah.
that's the thing about like change and habits. It's like when we have something that is so ingrained in us for years, we cannot expect it to feel awesome
Yeah.
when we make
It
a
doesn't
change
feel
on day one.
awesome right away. It
No.
does not. And that's why you have to focus on like one little step at a time.
Right. And I think that's the thing that can trip us up so much. I read a new study, I read the research all the damn
Yeah.
time about this, and it takes 66 days to make a change actually stick. Everyone says 28. That's a lie. It's actually 66. And they have the research to show this. And when we think about that, we think about 66 days, and it's like, we're probably giving it 2 freaking weeks.
Yeah.
And we're like, it's too hard. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Or a day. I mean, I always say we have the patience of a gnat. Like you do
Yeah,
something, you want people to respond right away. But I mean, we all have things that we're working on. So I think it just takes longer than we think.
it does. And I think maybe that's a really good place to kind of wrap it up of no matter what we're changing in our life, in our business, wherever it comes to be, is that it takes time and we have to learn to be patient. Some of us are always working on that, calling myself out on that.
Same.
And it's hard. So to the person listening, do you have any last words for her? For her who's listening, who's like, I'm ready to make a change, but I'm a little nervous. That's going to be hard.
I mean, when I present, I just had a workshop right before this. So this is the example that comes to mind. I have a slide that I show and I'll say like who I am and like what our mission as a business is and all these things. And then I show this slide and it's all pictures and it's all the different countries that we've gone to. And the first time we traveled with my girls, I think we went to Scotland and they were 7. So you can see the difference, but you can see some like pretty cool things. And I was like, this is what happens when you challenge yourself to think differently. than maybe you currently have. And I'm not saying like you have to travel or do all these different things, but like you don't know what you don't know. And so it kind of goes back to that question of like, well, where do you feel stressed? And like, what if there was something so much better on the other side of changing it? Like, I did not leave my corporate job saying, like, oh, we're going to go to all these different crazy places. That was not my intention. But because I changed some things slowly, that was the outcome. Like, I would have never guessed that outcome. And so I think that's why it's just so important to think like there's so much we're capable of. What if it was so much better than you like it's not even something you could write down on paper. You just don't even know yet. I don't know if that's a saying, but
It's great.
yeah.
I've seen that slide, so I'm visualizing that slide and I love it. But I think what you're really saying to the person listening is they don't know what's on the other side, but it's beautiful. But it's on the other side of tough.
Yeah.
You know, you got to go
Yeah.
through. And then that's hard for sure. Well,
It's
Holly,
hard that it could be better, right?
I know it's hard, but it's definitely going to be better on the other side, even if it doesn't work out the way we think.
Mhm.
There's so many times I have technically failed, and you've
Mhm.
talked about this too, but it ends up being better in the long run, even though there's some air quotes around the word fail, like the launch didn't work or the whatever doesn't work. It's like something is on the other side that made that it's worth it
Yeah,
for sure.
totally. And you're not going to introduce yourself and be like that my launch didn't work, but I'm still a
Please don't.
right? Like nobody cares.
Right. If you're doing that, please stop
Yeah.
because they don't know. The person talking to you does
Yes.
not know or doesn't need to know about
Right.
that.
Exactly.
Right. Well, I know everyone's going to want to run and learn more about you and connect with you. So tell them where they can find you on the internet.
Yeah, so you can head on over to the Crush the Rush podcast. We talk about topics like this actually quite a bit. I do a solo episode every week and share behind the scenes of what's going on. And then if you're a business owner and you're looking for ways to grow and scale without relying on social media or being online 24/7, so you can do more things that we talked about today, you can just go to hollymariehaynes.com/workshop. And it's a free workshop and private podcast. And I'll teach you all the things.
And it's great. It's so wonderful. I love all that you teach. I endorse it. I recommend it all the time. So thank you. And thank you for spending time with me today, Holly.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And thank you all for listening. It is so wonderful to be in the car or on a walk with you. It is just lovely. So I want you to take the accountable action of what Holly said and ask yourself two questions. Where are you feeling the most stressed? And what can you do differently in a very simple way to make a change so that you can see the result that you want? So have a great rest of your day, week, and keep being accountable.